Three, two, one. And we are live for a new episode of the Electrek Podcast. I am Fred Lambert, your host. And as usual, I'm joined by Seth Weintraub. How you doing, Seth?
I'm good, Fred.
Yeah, Seth and I actually saw each other earlier this week because we were both at the Bloomberg New Energy Finance Summit for the Future of Mobility in San Francisco. So we're going to discuss that a little bit. And also Seth last weekend said the World Traveler was also in Austin for the fully charged presentation. How was that, the fully charged weekend?
That was a lot of fun. There were tons of people there. Maybe we should do one of those. But tons of people, not so much stuff to do. And it was a little bit weird because, the two hosts of that show that I know weren't there. Robert Llewellyn got sick, which was sad. I've always wanted to meet him in person. And then I think one of the other, Johnny Carper, whatever his name is, love his stuff, but he, I think, moved on to his own channel. So it was a little bit strange. Chelsea Sexton was there. She's been a long-time EV advocate since the EV1. She's kind of taking the reins of the U.S. version of the show. So, some good people were there. Met up with a few fans of Electrek. Zach and Chance from 9 to 5 Mac were in town, so they stopped by. It was kind of fun. We drove Chance's Model 3 around, which is also fun. We met some Tesla groups were there. There wasn't like that much in the way of like new products, but they were having Audi drives and Chevy Bolt drives for those who hadn't been there. And I don't think I've ever seen so many Teslas in Texas before. I think pretty much every Tesla in Texas was there.
Despite having some direct sell issues in Texas, it is a pretty big market for Tesla for sure.
Absolutely.
And then after that, you made a quick stop in San Francisco where we meet up to check out the BNEF summit for the future of mobility. And we had a fun time there. It is the second year in a row that we're going there, and a San Francisco one because they have a bunch of them all over the world throughout the year. But the San Francisco one always focus on EVs, and there were a few interesting presentations there. We managed to get an interview with Mary Nichols, the California Air Resource Board chairwoman, who's announced her retirement. Fortunately for her, she did her time, probably, and but she's responsible for a lot of the legislation and a lot of the push in California to clean the air, and she gets a lot of credit for that, and she deserves it, in my opinion. And right now, of course, she's leading the charge against the battle between the EPA and Trump's administration and California over their right to establish their own standard for emissions. So we discussed a little bit with her. Unfortunately, we posted the interview if you want to check it out, but we didn't manage to get an interview in a place that the sound would have been good. So it's hard to listen, but maybe you can summarize it a little bit, Seth, what you guys did.
So it was really unfortunate because we've been trying to get this interview with her and saying, we had this room that we could have went to. But unfortunately, they were like, you can come here right now and you get, 5 minutes with her. And we're like, we only have our phones. We don't have our mics. We had somebody who was going to film, actually, Chris Payne from the Electrek, who killed the electric car series, offered to film, but, he needed some lead time. And they were just like, she's here, come now. So we go to the most, loud part of the building and everybody's talking over. So we tried. We may transcribe it later, but it's on the YouTube channel and linked on the podcast page. So what she basically kind of ran down the situation with the Trump administration. I was actually kind of surprised to learn how there was like genuine animosity between her and what I felt like the leadership of GM, which is Mary Barra, and the leadership of Toyota. She was genuinely like not pleased at all with them. I mean, obviously she's not pleased with the EPA, but I just thought it was. She actually, I believe,
she was surprised. I think her words was she was surprised that there was so much pushback from them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of surprised. Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
seem like what's in it. Well, I mean, GM says one thing and does another thing sometimes. So
Yeah, they're being weird about this whole situation, though the justification for it is questionable
at
at
best,
best. Yeah.
yeah. But Mary Nichols, missed or didn't go to the LA Auto Show last year because she
Mm,
didn't want to see GM and
mm,
Toyota and those folks. So it's like a serious battle, and of course, California has already said it won't buy any vehicles from companies that are backing the EPA. I have to say
mm,
EPA because it's really not
mm,
the EPA anymore.
mm-hmm.
Um, so California's not buying any more GM cars or Toyotas or pretty much everybody except Ford, Honda. Who's on California's side? Ford, Honda.
Tesla is sort of on their side.
Yeah, Tesla certainly on their side, but there was a couple others. I want to say Volkswagen.
Yeah, I think so. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, so Ford, Volkswagen, Honda are with California, and frankly, with most people, and then everybody else kind of sided with the
Oh
EPA.
yeah, most people agree. That I mean, the general public that, especially since CARB led the way with the standard, but it was adopted with a lot of other states too that felt like it was the way to go. Of course, that under the Obama administration, when they came to the cafe standards and everything, that sort of give them, oh, okay, maybe we don't necessarily have to follow the California standard and we can go to a federal standard. But now, of course, the Trump administration shutting everything down on that front. Mainly really turned back to California, and yeah, I mean, she seemed a little bit like she's tired of that fight, right? And then we interview
Right.
her, and right away she goes on stage, and she had a nice talk on stage too. But she announced basically her retirement there, where which was the first time she publicly mentioned that she's not gonna do another contract as the chairwoman of the board.
Yeah, so it's actually pretty like it's started a lot of speculation, like
Mm,
which way it'll go after her departure. Are they going
mhm,
to get somebody who's like maybe more of a negotiator or more
mhm.
of a firebrand? Maybe somebody from, I mean, hopefully it's not like a car lobbyist, but usually that's kind of where these people come from.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, to be fair to Nichols wasn't perfect too. Like
no, she,
she definitely pushed forward a lot of standards that were beneficial for the state and others. But she also was extremely close to the hydrogen industry, and she pushed for strong subsidies for fuel cell vehicles that have been extremely unsuccessful despite her strong push for it. So, not that I think that had a huge impact. I mean, there was some money definitely that could have been used to accelerate the EV adoption, and instead went to passenger fuel cell vehicles, which I think a lot of people agree is not the way to go. But I think all in all, she had a positive impact on the environment for sure. She's one of those people that we remember for that.
yeah. Also, her husband worked for Shell. That might have
Yeah.
that might have helped with the fuel cell stuff.
Mhm.
So nobody's perfect. Anyway, let's
Mhm.
move on to what else happened today or this
Yeah.
week.
Yeah, well, to wrap it up with the BNF thing, let's talk a bit about the Tesla stock, because that was a crazy week, a crazy ride for shareholders this
So
week.
crazy.
Yeah, well, it's still crazy, but all in all, I just look back and people are still like, you started the week, and if you just held and you didn't sell anything, you didn't try to play this crazy speculation map of this week, you're still 15% up in the week. So I think let's start a conversation with that. So even though it was a crazy ride, if people just held on, they're still up 15% this week, which is massive. Now, of course, it went way up more than 15%. It went all the way almost to $1,000 per share, which was crazy. And so at the BNF summit, Tesla wasn't there. Well, there were a few Tesla employees, but there was no official Tesla presence there. I mean, the summit is sponsored by Audi. There was a lot of Audi people there. There was a lot of Nissan people there. There was a lot of talk about electric vehicle, but not Tesla direct. Although that's all people were talking about. People were talking about you could walk around the hall and you hear someone say Tesla, Tesla, Tesla. Like people were talking about Tesla, and of course, it was a stock price going crazy. Even the master of ceremony at the whole conference would always come out and like talk about the stock price real quick just to keep people updated, which I thought was quite a weird phenomenon.
Yeah, it's like taking an airplane flight like while the Super Bowl is going on and the pilot comes on and gives you the scores. Although like nowadays everybody's watching it on TV, but like before, you know, it was very strange. A lot of people were talking about it.
So of course now the big question at Tesla, since the stock ran up like that, and also the rally has been going on for like over a month now. I mean, I don't know how much is up year to date, but let's see real quick. Year to date, the Tesla shareholders are up almost 80%, 78.82% right now, which is quite a lot. So people want to know, is it time to sell, or because of the crazy week that they have, that it went all the way up 960, should we buy more right now? As you guys know, a few weeks ago, disclosed that he sold his stake. I'm still in it, and I'm not adding more at that level. I'd be nervous to add more, but I'm holding long term. I like the prospect of Tesla long term, even at these prices. But at this time right now, I think they have some growing into the valuation that they need to do. So I don't feel like it's the perfect time to buy. I don't know about you. No,
so I, obviously, if I'm, I sold a couple weeks ago in the 500s. I don't think it's a good time to buy. I kind of feel like there's a lot of volatility left, both up and down. So it's a little bit scary for me because, I'm long Tesla. In my mind, I feel like at the end of the decade, it's going to be a very valuable stock. I just feel like there's so many uncertainties about how well autopilot will kind of come out, how competition is going to work. I hate to say this, but I'm also kind of fearful of what the oil companies are going to do. I mean, this is like a multi-trillion-dollar industry that, if Tesla succeeds in speeding along the transition to electric, they go away. So, and these are not good people. Like, these are not the play fair, play norm, whatever, play above the board. These are the like kind of the worst people on earth. They're destroying the earth. So I don't expect like above board stuff to happen. So I think there might be some asymmetrical type of attacks on Tesla, on the electric vehicle industry in general. So it's just very volatile right now. And obviously going up and down like it is right now, you don't know where the next run's going to go. I would probably get back in the 300 or 400s if it went there. I'm not sure if it would. I'm not sure if it ever will, but judging by the past, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if the shorts are gonna get back in on that one. I can't even imagine how much money was lost. I know there were reports of like around $10 billion.
Yeah, that's what they're talking for the year alone.
Yeah, $10 billion. That's Mazda, the size of Mazda, and the size of Mitsubishi, two car companies combined. $10 billion. So that's just like kind of unfathomable to me. And frankly, Tesla still has a lot to prove. There's quality issues, as I said before, autopilot. There's expansion. They've got some, they have to open up Germany. It sounds like Shanghai is going well, except for the coronavirus, which is a big except.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's a lot of volatility ahead, I believe. But I think at the end of the decade, if I had to guess, I would say Tesla's going to be a very viable stock. A tech stock, kind of like Google or Apple or
But
Yeah,
you feel like there might be some opportunity to buy lower in the next in the short term, so that's
I think over the next year it'll dip down to 400 or something like that.
okay.
And that's kind of what I'm betting on. I think, if I want to get back in, that's where I want to get back in. But I might be wrong. It could be 1,000 literally tomorrow. We don't know.
Yeah, that's almost what happened on Tuesday, right?
Yeah. I mean, not literally tomorrow since it's Friday, but figuratively.
Yeah. So again, Tesla was a big talk at the BNF, not just for the stock, but also for the impact on the industry. And we shared one of the chart that I found interesting that came out of a talk by, I mean, she was like Colin.
Yeah.
What is his name? His last name? Makaracher. It's hard. Hard for me to pronounce. I'm sorry, Colin. I'm butchering your last name, but very interesting talk that he had. That was, I like the theme of it too. The theme was the end of the beginning for the electric revolution, but basically, that it's now entering a more mature state. But despite that mature state in the U.S., so he's talking, of course, on the global market. The global market is more mature with all the electric cars are coming out in Europe this year. China also, despite the recent issues, doing extremely well on a longer time frame. In the U.S., it's a different issue, especially with the way I see it. Basically, too many automakers right now are only focusing on the regulatory landscape in order to plan for their US EV introductions, which is slowing it down, of course, a lot. And in the meantime, what we see is basically Tesla running away with the bulk of the market in the US. He shared a chart showing that Tesla currently owed about 60% of market share of the US EV market, and the Model 3 alone owed 50%, which is kind of insane. And then if you look at the other best-selling EVs in the US, sales are all down. Like the Bolt EV sales are down over last year. Nissan Leaf sales are down. So it's a very strange situation where Tesla is running away with the market. However, Tesla also ran out of federal tax credit last year. So now the situation in 2020 is very different. It's going to be interesting to see how Tesla holds up without the federal tax credit, because they are at a disadvantage against those other automakers who held out on the slow down their EV deployment. And now that they're coming out with new cars, those new cars are going to be cheaper thanks to subsidies that Tesla buyers don't have access to, because of the framework of the federal tax credit is just poorly designed. Really, that's a problem.
Yep. And
so
Tesla's not alone. GM also is running out. I think next month or next quarter they're done, and then I think Nissan's just about to hit the limit at some point. They're not going very fast though, so.
My concern with Tesla in the US is that like Nissan and GM were never a big competitor to them. I think it's more on the premium side of it, and now that BMW is coming out with some things that could be competitive with the Model 3 and even the Model Y with the iX3 coming out. Then Audi, of course, Mercedes. Though Mercedes is taking their sweet time. The EQC is not coming to the US until next year. But I think that and those guys still have plenty in the bank in terms of federal tax credit. So I think that's going to be the challenge for Tesla there. But I think it's almost crazy because we're talking about a $7,500 difference. But I think Tesla could remain competitive in the market, which I know it's a wait and see situation. You don't have to believe me, but let's wait and see.
Yeah, I agree. Tesla's so far ahead of the game right now and kind of running away with it, even without the tax credit. It's kind of crazy just to see. And, Tesla's not done innovating.
No, and they're running away with the mind share too. Like right now in the US, when you're taking an electric car, you're taking Tesla.
For sure.
And that's going to have a long-term impact that if the other automakers were just relying on the regulatory landscape and the tax credit and everything, they're gonna have a hard time recover from that. But
yeah, that's one of the things, like the EQC being canceled or temporarily canceled. Mercedes is just sitting it out, like they're and they may eventually come up with something, but at that point, I think that they're gonna miss the game.
It would be interesting to see how the Model Y will do, not necessarily this year, but next year. I think this year Tesla is going to be able to work off a lot of bolt-up demand from the last year, and of course they're gonna start out with the performance version and the higher price car. The federal tax credit doesn't have as much of an impact on it, and of course Tesla also still has access to incentive in other markets like California, New York, and a few others, Colorado. Though we'll have to check out the Model Y since the pricing is a little bit higher than the Model 3, and some of those states have requirements in terms of the MSRP on the vehicles in order to have access to incentive. You should check out in your own state if the Model Y apply. But next year, when Tesla achieve higher volume and start selling the lower price Model Y, that's where we'll see like really where they are at in terms of the demand and how they can compete with other vehicles in the market that still have access to federal tax credits.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's a little bit more complicated because sure, the Mustang Mach-E is coming. Basically, a whole bunch of like Model Y size vehicles are coming. On the high end, you mentioned BMW, but these cars don't have as robust a network. And like this is something that's hitting me a little bit more. Like every time I think about getting a non-Tesla, I think about that center stack and the like Netflix, and like you basically have a huge tablet in there. And of course you could just throw an iPad in your car, but it's not quite the same thing. And I feel like a lot of people are going to be swayed by that. Like you're going to have a Mustang. Mustang's got a really cool screen. The UI is not as good, obviously. BMW is going to be kind of garbage inside. They both have CarPlay and Android Auto, so that's a plus. You can do some text messaging and communications that those platforms allow. But overall, like you're going to enjoy the Tesla interface way more. So even I was driving the Taycan last week, which was amazing, but like the center stack was just really not there. And of course, this was
It's nothing that comes close to it. Yeah, nothing that comes close to it. Absolutely nothing. While still on the subject of Model Y, though, we got the EPA rating, the official EPA rating for the performance version of it this week. And it's as Tesla promised last week during the earnings, the range has increased to 315 miles on a single charge. They have the official efficiency at 121 miles per gallon equivalent. That's 129 in the city, 112 on the highway. And it's officially makes it the most efficient SUV ever tested by the EPA in the US. So, of course, that's not too surprising. In terms of how it compares with other electric vehicles, though, it beats even the Kona EV, which was like, I mean, I'm having a hard time calling it an SUV, but still, like it close enough to that form factor, the same form factor as the Model Y. It beat it by just 1 mpg, so pretty close. In terms of efficiency and range, that's the interesting part that people want to know about, because how it compares to Model 3 performance. And Tesla has talked about an efficiency gain with the Model Y that's coming, that has been released. It does beat the Model 3 performance if you compare it to the 19-inch wheels. The one in 19-inch was tested at 204 miles of range and 116 miles per gallon equivalent. So that's a significant improvement over that, despite having a bigger vehicle, a larger form factor, which should be less aerodynamic, should be a little bit heavier. It's more efficient. Of course, now we are comparing it to the 19-inch wheels because that's what's standard on the Model Y performance. But they didn't differentiate. They didn't say on which wheels the EPA tested the Model Y performance. And unlike the Model 3, where you now with the 2020 version, you can have both you can all three versions, the 18, 19, 20 inch. So it gives us a better picture. They didn't do that with the Model Y for some reason, but first of all, since it gets such a high mileage, I assume it's the smaller wheels option, and it's also what's standard on it. So I would assume that they have to use what's standard, but the Model Y is also performance, which is also offered in 20 and 21 inch wheels. All right, so now what does it mean? If you just look at the information that we have available right now, it would mean that indeed the Model Y is much more efficient, significantly more efficient than the Model 3 with the same configuration. However, I would put an asterisk on this because we have seen Tesla play with an EPA numbers before where they could actually advertise higher numbers and don't. So I would, before confirming it, say that the EPA confirms that it's more efficient. We need to do some probably our own test or have more information for the EPA test to have a clear understanding. But it's still very possible that Tesla had a significant efficiency increase. What I'm thinking, I would like to know the weight of the Model Y on this. Maybe Tesla made some improvement and the weight is lower than especially with all they say that the joining the body into a one part,
right?
Maybe using different materials for that, for the welding that they need to weld together. So all those things could have contributed to. I'd be surprised that if it weighs less than the Model 3, but close enough that then, despite the higher frame of the car, the aerodynamic hit is not that big. And then with some improvement in the powertrain itself, maybe that's what comes out at those numbers.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is if the Model Y is like a whole step change better than the Model 3, then who's going to buy a Model 3, let alone like a Model S or a Model X, in the current form? I mean, and hopefully they can make tons and tons of them, because I feel like they're not going to catch up to demand anytime soon, like maybe not even this year. Which is good for Tesla, but if you're in the market for a car, it's going to be hard to get your hands on one, I think.
Oh, yeah, especially if you don't already have a reservation,
right?
Though funny enough, Tesla never actually disclosed the backlog on Model Y reservation. I assume it's over 100,000 at this point, but or it could be even a lot more than that. Who knows?
And you don't have a Model Y reservation, right?
I do not, especially since. Well, you remember after the Model 3 reservation process, I was like, it's not really worth it that much, especially if you're not in the US. For Canadian or other markets, it doesn't seem to be worth it, because I had the first day reservation order for the Model 3. I bought the highest spec one, which was apparently the one that was coming first, and of course none of that happened. So my reservation, I gave Tesla basically $1,000 for was it 3 years?
It was a long time.
2 years or something, 2 years and a half, for no reason. Someone that bought a Model 3 Performance without a reservation got the same week as I did. So I didn't see any value in that. I think there is value in some other situations, so I'm not saying it's completely valueless. But then they came out with the Model Y reservation process, and they didn't call it a reservation, they called it a pre-order, and it was $2,500 instead of $1,000. So I thought, like, all right, now that you're pushing it a little bit, I'm gonna wait on that one. But I did get a Cybertruck, and then that was just $100.
Right.
A Cybertruck reservation. I didn't get a Cybertruck.
That's a little further out, though.
Yeah, it is.
So I have a Model Y, my reservation. I also have a Mustang Mach-E reservation. So I don't know. I'm not going to get both of those things, or maybe I will, but then I'll have to get rid of everything else. So I'm still not sure where I'm going to end up. I actually, like, I know this, like, everybody freaks out when I say this, but like, I really like the Chevy Bolt. I don't know, my lease on that ends pretty soon, so I'm just kind of juggling cars at this point.
Oh yeah, you should talk about the call that you got this week, where we were in the press room at the Bloomberg thing.
So I get those calls like once every couple weeks. It's crazy. So Chevy, my dealer, where I got the Bolt in Westchester, New York. Calls me, like once a week, telling me that my Bolt lease is going to end and I need to get a new car and they'll let me have it early. And of course, I'm like, what kind of electric cars do you have? And they're like, we have nothing. And I'm like, like, do you even have the new Bolt? And they're like, no, we don't have any on the lot. We could order one.
Mm.
And I'm just kind of like, screw you. Like, it's really rough. Being
but then you asked him,
Bolt owner.
how do you expect to sell them if you don't have any on the lot?
Right.
And then he said, well, you see, sir, vast majority of our business is the Traverse and the Equinox or something like that, whatever it is, which are like SUVs or something.
Yeah.
So we don't see any value in keeping any Bolt EV on the lot. So that comes back to our point that the dealership are a big bottleneck to EV adoptions. We need to get them on board, and to get them on board, you need to make to force them in some way to have them on their lots, because that's the only way that they move things, as if they have it in inventory.
Yeah, I mean, how do you expect somebody like an EV is a big step purchase for a lot of people? How do you expect somebody to buy an EV if they can't even look at it, let alone drive it or sit inside it? Like it's like a chicken or the egg, and they're certainly not going to artificially help themselves at all. And of course, like nobody there knows anything about the Bolt, like except like, oh, we started selling that like 3 years ago. I don't know what's going on.
I think it's soon to be 4 years too.
Yeah. There are some really good incentives right now, though. If you're looking for a Bolt, 2020s can be had for like $25,000, which is pretty good. Like you're getting a really good car for that. New York's got a couple more thousand in incentives.
Yeah. And I know you're a fan and everything of it, but I would find it hard. Like, it would be difficult for me to put even if it's just 25,000 in a car like that, like the resale value in the 4 years or something, I think it's going to be pretty bad. However, if you find a lease that's not too expensive, like you're going to see some less than $200 lease now coming up. That makes a lot of sense, especially when you account for your gas saving on top of it. It might pay for itself, basically, to have a lease on a Bolt. And then when it's done in 3 years or whatever,
you're not responsible.
You're not responsible, and you're gonna have a lot of better choices on the market for an EV at that point.
Yep.
So you're not buying a new gasoline car, which would be an even worse investment than a $25,000 Bolt EV, and you don't have to buy gas for 3 years.
Right. And by the way, we have a new thing that we're going to announce pretty soon on Electrek. If you go to automakers and drop down, you can find the best prices on electric vehicles other than Tesla. Tesla doesn't really have deals or whatever. But we've got a guy who's going out to all the dealerships asking for the best deals on, or best advertised rates on cars. And what's nice is that even if you're not going to be able to buy one from some crazy dealer in California that's got amazing deals, you can take that deal and go to your local dealer and say, hey, they're selling it for this much. Come on, give me a break. And pretty much, most dealers are getting the same prices, so they can usually match it or at least talk to their manager and give you a good deal. So yeah, that's a new thing. I'll have a post on it soon. Just from the automakers drop down in the Electrek page, you can find it. That's the first thing.
Yeah. And if you guys have any question for us to answer, please put it in YouTube right now, and we'll get them at the end of the show, which is coming up after a few more news items that we're going to discuss. Starting with Elon Musk teasing a possible Texas gigafactory. It was just a single tweet thing where he said Giga Texas within and question mark. And there was a poll that came with it and asking, well, that was the question, really, Giga Texas question mark. And the two choices were hell yeah or nope. And 81% came in at least within the first 45,000 votes. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it probably changed since then. That was in the first hour that was posted that we took that. Let me see how it changed, because that was a few days ago. No, still pretty close, 80% to 20%. Hell yes. So I assume that the other 20% is people that want it to be in their home state and they're not in Texas or something. because we had a problem with Tesla building a factory in Texas. So yeah, there's no. That's it. That's all the official information we have. Of course, Tesla's been talking about building a gigafactory somewhere else in the U.S. They are running out of space in Fremont at this point. The Model Y is most likely the last vehicle that they can add to the schedule at Fremont. Then there's a bunch of vehicles already announced, already unveiled by Tesla that don't have a production location just yet. And we're talking about the Tesla Semi, we're talking about the Roadster, we're talking about the Cybertruck. That's 3 vehicles that Tesla is talking about launching in the next 2 years. And we don't know what's happening. There's been rumor of Gigafactory 1, now known as Gigafactory Nevada, and could take some of that volume, but so far there's never been a car produced there. It's only batteries, battery pack, drive units, power walls, power pack, mega packs. That's all the products that is producing there. So yeah, and of course with Texas and Texas reputation and loving trucks, a lot of speculation that the would be a Cybertruck factory there.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Makes sense, but it's just speculation at this point.
Tesla also has their AI team in Austin as well.
I think it's a chip thing, chip team. That is
but they have some AI folks there, I believe, as well as a chip.
Okay.
I think when Elon said that we're hiring AI folks, he was like, "You can work in the Bay Area, you can work in Texas, or you can work in any of the gigafactories."
Mm-hmm. Also, Elon just like Texas with SpaceX. The SpaceX at their spaceport in Brownsville, which is next to the border and next to the Gulf.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons.
They have their another factory, SpaceX, there, not too far from that, and they're gonna build a Starship there. So that's gonna be a gigafactory on its own. Probably it's gonna be massive factory. I know that this weekend they held a giant job fair there. So probably Elon is liking the reception that SpaceX is having in Texas. Is thinking, well, why not throw Tesla into the mix here and have Tesla get some love from Texas too? That would make a ton of sense, really.
Yeah, they can't even have dealerships like official dealerships. They have a thing in Texas, like a showroom where you can't buy anything, but I think what they do is they tell you to FaceTime a salesperson, in this next state over, and they take you through the sales process.
Yeah, I think they liked what happened in Michigan a few weeks ago, where they managed to officially get some loopholes. I think Tesla had some loopholes in place in Texas, and they don't have much issues with it. Like it's not that big of a deal for them. Every year they still try to talk to the legislation there and see if they can pass something, but it never works out. So, but I don't think it's that much of a high priority for them. While it's not something like Michigan where they couldn't service their cars, anything like that. They have a ton of service center in Texas, so I think it's not as high of a priority there. My main issue would probably be a workforce. I mean, the job situation in Texas is more stable and everything. So, of course, Tesla is also trying to reduce the workforce per car manufactured. So maybe they don't see it as a problem. So we'll see.
Yeah, and also Austin, and I can't speak for the rest of Texas, but Austin is a great place to be. Like lots of different ideas and kind of like a city on the east or west coast.
Progressive city within Texas.
Yeah, so it's not quite. Yeah, and that attracts smart people, obviously.
Yeah, and they had some kind of tech boom. Right? They have a lot of tech companies there.
Yeah, a lot of chips go with it.
Yeah, chip building. Yeah, they have Samsung is there. Intel is there too. They have some Intel. They have some AMD. I think is there too.
Texas Instruments is there.
Texas Instruments. That's true. All right. On the tech side for Tesla this week, we had a few posts. There was a little dump of patents this week from Tesla, and I dug through it and found 2 interesting ones. One is a new sort of high-tech steering wheel, a new user interface for the steering wheel. It includes 2 touchpads on each side of the wheel, and something to replace the gear stalk, and instead of the gear stalk being on the side, it's now like there's 3 arms within the steering wheel. Basically, the touchpads on the arms on each side, and the one at the bottom now has the gear stalk in it, which you just press the whichever gear you want, drive, park, neutral, or whatever. And as for the touchpads, they are of course touch sensitive, and they have haptic feedback in it, and they are gesture sensitive, so you can use them more like you would use your touchscreen, really. So it's sort of a continuation of the touchscreen itself. That's what they're trying to do, instead of using those little scroll on the Model 3, which I think are okay, but not the greatest experience either. That would feel more natural. The touchpad is something you're used to. If you use the phone, if you use the center screen on Model 3, you're going to be able to use that. And it, of course, also opens up more possibility for updates and more different controls that can be done with it. In my post on Electrek, you can check out, but I posted a list of a possible function that Tesla could activate using that. And it ranges for the most simple thing to a little bit more complex things that you can do, all the way to if Tesla would probably correct me and say when they do release full self-driving, they could make it even more advanced, where you could basically use those touchscreen to write messages and do a bunch of other things. So an interesting update. Now, of course, as always, when we report on those patents, some company, Tesla included, they do sometimes patent things that never ends up ending into a commercial product. However, for this one, they don't only patented this new concept for a user interface on the steering wheel, but they also patented a new steering wheel itself and a new way to integrate the steering wheel into the car. So it looks like they are pretty advanced with this idea. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's actually an updated steering wheel, probably in the Model S or X design refresh or something like that. I would think it's coming later this year.
How do you feel about the design? I personally, I don't know if I want the gear stock on the steering wheel.
That's my only issue with it too. I don't think that the gear stock is a particularly nice interface to have with. So I'm not. It's not like I'm like, oh, don't fix a problem if that doesn't exist. But I think it's too much on the wheel. Like, I like a clean wheel. I think touchpads would be fine. Like, you can make them look clean. But the whole R and D on the steering wheel like that, I don't think it looks clean. I don't like how it looks, and I don't think it's fixing a problem that's really big either. It's just like it's not an ideal user interface of the gear stock, but not big enough to I mean, I don't want to say ruin the steering wheel, but make it a lot less attractive, in my opinion.
Yeah,
we're in agreement on that.
Yeah, I'm not down with this the gear stock on the steering wheel. At least not in this current form. Also, like, how is it going to work? Like, if you're kind of stressing out, like, how good are the buttons going to be? Or when you're like turning around, are you going to accidentally hit it? A lot of questions. Uncertainty.
The second interesting patent that I saw was for a bunch of new aluminum alloys that Tesla has come up with, has invented. Of course, people have been taking issue with me using the word invented for that, but I mean, I don't know what else you want to call that. I mean, of course, I'm not saying that Tesla invented aluminum. They invented a different kind of aluminum alloys with different capabilities, different level of strength and conductivity. That's what they did here. And if you haven't been following our coverage of Tesla's material teams, Elon Musk has invested a lot in that. He believes that. Of course, he's always talking about those first principle issues, and that goes down to the materials you use to build your products. And he hired this guy called Charles Kuhlman. I think that's how you pronounce his name, Kuhlman. Who was the head of materials at Apple's for years. And he hired him to be both the head of materials at Tesla and SpaceX at the same time. So he heads both team, and the team also works together. We reported on that before. They developed a new software to a database of of materials to keep an eye on everything. And but this one, it was specifically developed for Tesla. In the patent application, Tesla described that the problem with the aluminum alloys used for casting these days is that you have to make a compromise between the strength of it and the conductivity of it, and to make parts that to have both high strength for them and a high conductivity, you could have some issue with die casting them because of something. And again, I'm not an expert in that, so don't quote me on it. But based on what I read around it, it's that you have some hot tearing. Is that what you call it? Yeah. Die casting support. Yeah, a hot tearing that make the part weaker if you use the alloy in die casting. So they are trying to create a new aluminum alloy that has a high yield strength, high conductivity, but is also resistant to hot tearing when used in die casting. Especially, they need all those characteristics for making drive unit parts. So the rotor and those things like that, they are casted in aluminum. But they need a high connectivity and high strength. So if you look at the pattern, I listed what they achieved here, but they're talking about the average aluminum having like if you want a high strength, it's a 175 MPa that you get. But if you do that, you only have a 40% IACS, which is the conductivity. But then if you want the high conductivity, which is 40% and up, 48% and up, then you have a lot less strength, which is 100 MPAs or less. Tesla, some new material says that they can get it anywhere from 90 to 150 MPa with conductivity 40% to 60%. So it would be a great improvement on that front, all while also being able to die cast it. So we're talking about a new alloys that Tesla could use for their drive units. We don't know if it's being used right now, if it will in the future, but was interesting to see them working all the way down to the material level on that front. All right, Lucid. I sat down with Peter Rawlinson, CEO of CTO of Lucid. He was at the BNEF with us, and he was kind enough to give me a 20-minute something interview, and was really interesting.
He's a former Tesla guy, right?
Yeah, he was the former VP of engineering at Tesla and the chief engineer of the Model S program during the core day of the designing of the Model S 2009 to 2012. And I was really impressed with. I was already before I interviewed him. He was on the panel at the BNF on a talk, and what he was saying during the talk is something that I connected with a lot, because he was talking about the way to approach a future of efficiency in electric vehicles, where he agreed with something that we've been saying for a while, that the focus on range is okay, but up to a degree, where you cannot just focus on range by making bigger battery packs all the time. That just won't. It's not a sustainable way to go forward in increasing range, because at one point you just don't want to carry around a big 200 kilowatt battery pack in order to be able to have that 500 miles range that most people don't need most of the time. So even though he agreed that you need a longer range 400 miles vehicles right now for some specific application, but mostly the real use for that is changing the perception of people of electric cars, that they have shorter range. That would be helpful to have 400 miles cars in order to do that. But long term, we need to change people's perception that they need a 400 miles car, because they mostly don't. Not a lot of people drive 400 miles in one sitting. That's an extremely rare occurrence. So the priority is, yes, to have a fairly long range car, 200 miles and more, but having convenient and fast charging is a lot more important than have the longer range, because then what you can do is have more efficient cars with smaller battery pack achieving great range and charge the battery pack faster. And then you can use a lot more. You can build a lot more cars, because you use fewer batteries per cars, and batteries is right now the biggest bottleneck to EV adoption. So he reflected a lot of those comments, which I found interesting. And then he made it clear that Lucid has a big focus on efficiency in electric cars, which I like to hear because aside from Tesla, we don't see a lot of that. I mean, that's one of our biggest complaints. That every time there's a new EVs that's coming out from a legacy manufacturer, they're not that efficient for electric cars. So with the 74 mpge for the Audi e-tron, for example, it's okay compared to gasoline car, but compared to what Tesla's coming up with, it's not even getting close. So he made some interesting comments on that front. He even did a little jab at Tesla, saying that Tesla hasn't cracked it yet, that they're going to take the range and efficiency to a whole new level. I don't know how much of that is true. I mean, apparently they are coming up with a very efficient car, but I'm not sure just how much more efficient it's going to be in Tesla. We're going to wait for the EPA numbers for that. But he did say a lot of interesting things that he leaked out. Of course, we've seen the Lucid Air a few years ago when they first unveiled it, but now the production version is coming later this year, and we are expecting a lot of update versus the one that we saw 3 years ago. And he leaked a few updates in my interview, including the fact that he's going with a 900-volt system, which should be the first in an electric car. He believed that that's going to enable a lot of efficiency gains on top, of course, of power gains in charging, which is going to be over 300 kilowatts, according to what he said. In terms of the range, he said that they're going to still maintain that 400 miles range that was originally announced, but with the efficiency gain that they made in the last few years, they're going to be able to achieve it with a pack smaller than the 130 kilowatt hour pack that they first announced. So I thought that was interesting too. Some of the things that he said they did to achieve that higher efficiency are just designing a super compact miniature drive unit. Really, he said it's so small that he can pick it up by himself, or almost. He said he used to before. Now you might not have his strength to do it, but it's impressive that a single adult can pick up a drive unit that can output 1,000 plus horsepower. You certainly cannot do that with a gas-powered engine. They designed even things like the gears have a new design that are smoother, more efficient, using less grease inside the motor to be. It's almost dry, but it still flows well. A lot of things like that they're really going down to the very smallest detail in order to improve efficiency.
Yeah, I mean the car looks great, right?
Oh yeah,
car looks great. 900-volt system, fast charging, big range. Guy who built the Tesla Model S. Things seem to be going good. Obviously, like all startups, running out of money seems to be the biggest concern there.
They did get $1 billion from the Saudis, so I'm sure their coffers are full right now.
Yeah, they got all the Tesla money, probably.
Yeah. One thing also I want to add really quick, because that was an important part. Every time I see a new electric car that I like everything about it, except for a few things, maybe let's give the Audi e-tron, for example. I was the e-tron last week. I like the car. Car is great. Efficiency is not, again, on the great side, but it's still a 200 miles car, so it's not too bad. Interior is incredible and everything, but when everything goes well, where they let me down, it's always the same place. It's a user interface and the whole user experience, all you interact with the car. Being a Tesla owner, being used to Tesla, there's nothing that comes on par with Tesla. So I told him that, Peter Rawlinson, what are they doing about that? Like, how serious are they taking the UI and UX inside the car? And I was glad to see that he agreed with me. He agreed that Tesla was ahead on that front. So they are taking it very seriously. They hired a lot of software engineers, a lot of UI designers, and they are putting them all in the design studio to have a direct access to the designers and to evolve the design with that. And he seemed very confident that the user interface is going to be very enjoyable. So we'll need to test the car to see it, but I was very happy to hear that. That was one of the most interesting parts, I think, that gets me looking forward to that car. So the actual production version, we're going to see it in April at the New York Auto Show. We might be able to get in the car before that and get you guys a preview. So we'll see. But excited about it. Speaking of that, it's going to be a good transition. One of the other concerns, I was concerned with the UI, but I was also concerned with the charging infrastructure. You mentioned it earlier when you talk about buying another car than a Tesla. You're like, the supercharger network is so convenient. Lucid is partnering with Electrify America for the charging, so that's. I mean, they're making great progress. Speaking of, which was announced this week, 400 stations. So the first goal that they set out to achieve was 400 stations. They completed them this week, so that's good news. And of course, they have hundreds more in different stages of development right now, and they plan to keep going and have a very extensive network in North America. This said, you're still relying on a third party to provide what is a big part of the experience of owning an electric car, the charging on the road. So it's a risk, in my opinion. However, Electrify America seems to be improving, so it's interesting on that front. But again, a risk, in my opinion. All right, that's pretty much it, I think, for us on the news front. Maybe we can go to the questions now.
Yeah, sure.
Yep.
Let's start from the top. How likely is it that Tesla gives early reservation holders for the Performance Y the option to get the Gemini wheels without the $990 price increase? They've automatically changed mine to the Uber turbine. That's from Christian Vieira.
Really? I thought the Gemini wheels were the standard one, so I don't see why they would be price increase. Unless you mean the price increase from the one you configured last year. Maybe. That might be it. That might be what you mean here. I'm not sure about that. I don't need to see both quotes to see what's up. But it's an interesting question.
There's going to be a lot of variances happening over the next
Yeah. If you're ordering a car a year in advance, you have to expect some of this.
So Luminous Gamer says, first time he's invested. Hope it works out. Nice podcast. I guess he jumped in the deep end there.
Yeah, good luck, Luminous. We'll see.
Hopefully it wasn't the all your savings.
Yeah.
BMW, I don't know where that was, but
I think it was when
California.
We were talking about California.
Yeah. Giga Texas, yeah, we talked about that. So this is an interesting thing. You guys would argue the exact opposite if a state wanted to adopt their own standard in the opposite direction.
Yeah, well, first of all, California got a waiver, and the waiver was taking away. That's at the core of it. That's the issue for sure. So if you want to discuss whether or not the California should have a waiver or not, I agree that there's some like political and legal ramification to that. But we don't really care about that. We care about doing the right things here. Like if the law is not enabling the right thing to be done, then change the law. It's as simple as that.
I mean, frankly, if California was the nationwide situation, we would still argue that it's not enough. Like I don't think Californians are enough, but it's as good as we're going to get right now.
Yeah.
So if you have these two choices, California is certainly better, but really, we should just be taxing the crap out of carbon. That's just how it is.
Yeah, I'm sure that's not what you wanted to hear, but.
And then personally, I agree California has a right, but that should be argued on constitutional grounds. Sure.
You should just do the right thing.
Exactly. Indication of speed of production ramp for Model Y, March.
Faster than Model 3. That's the only thing that I can guarantee. That's about it.
I think betting on evil was in regard to me talking about the
oil companies. You're betting that the oil companies are going to do bad thing to Tesla, and then you're going to buy lower. I don't think that's a simplification of it, really. But you're expecting that might happen, and you don't want the risk of holding the stock. That's more.
And I think it's going to go back and forth. I don't think it's going to be like just evil wins and Tesla goes to zero. I think it's going to be, they're going to do some sneaky stuff. They're probably going to get some more government. I mean, who knows how long Trump's going to be in office, but if he's in another 4 years and he decides
they have other subsidies guaranteed, basically.
Yeah. And then maybe they have like EV taxes for roads, and they have to, you have to pay $300,000 to get a Tesla or something. I don't know. Something, we don't know what's coming. And then what the And then this guy said
Yeah.
what we said. All right. Shorts will be dead soon. I don't know about dead, but they're going to
Yeah,
be
I
rough.
don't like the word dead. I don't like maybe like ruin, maybe.
She is autopilot coming. Don't know what that means. I think shorts will be here forever, probably.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Especially with the, I mean, to be fair, if some people took short position at 960 or something when that stock jumped, they already made some money. So there's always going to be a opportunity for shorts on Tesla stock due to the constant volatility.
Yeah, and if you think the government's about to come down with some crazy stuff, maybe it makes sense to short. I don't know.
Oh yeah, there's the broader market to think about too. Tesla is not the lone player. A lot of factors affecting it.
Yep. Market timing is tough. I know this firsthand. If Tesla crushes with a 7.5K disadvantage, that will show the gap. I think
that's what we
we're seeing.
discussed. Yeah, the next year, if Model Y is being better than competition next year without that disadvantage, then it's going to be the last nail in the coffin, probably.
So Robert Matthews also says, interesting, Model 3 price didn't drop after the phase out. I think it did on the first drop. I think.
Yeah, first drop. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 phase outs. Tesla dropped the price. Yep. I think they have their margins that they need to make, and they know their demand and supply, and it didn't make sense at that point. And I think, frankly, they were changing the price too much, and I think customers were sick of that. So that's how they arrived at no decision. If I think Tesla is going to be so huge, why did I even sell? Because I think it's going to go up and down and up and down, and I think there's going to be a better time to get in. That may be stupid, but it got me a house. It's really hard to think about owning anything else. I agree.
In that sector, I mean, I think there's plenty of other opportunities and take advantage of the electric revolution for sure.
Yeah, and I think he's referring to when we were talking about the center stack of the Tesla.
Oh, okay. I thought we were still talking about the stock.
Yeah. I think, I don't know, but either way, I agree. Model Y reservations originally $2,500 refundable, but not pre-order is now $100 non-refundable. Yep, it's true.
Yeah, which is weird.
You could probably return and get a new one at whoever the big tri-state Bolt dealers. Yeah, I know, but I don't want dealing with these people. Buy at Quirk Chevy in Massachusetts. I have heard of this one. They got great prices. They're in our price guide. Apparently they even have some people on staff that know what they're talking about.
Oh,
yeah,
the Chevy.
Yeah, I know. Is the drop in Ford stock a sign of things to come? I think it's a sign of them losing a lot of money. I think they've made the right choice. I think a lot of the problem was the Explorer rollout was pretty bad.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from, Rustin. But at the same time, I think Ford made a lot of good move recently on electrification. We were all impressed with what they did with the Mach-E. Whether it's going to be a success is remains to be seen. But there are a lot of experience on that stuff. Then the F-150, their biggest product, they are perfectly willing to electrify it in a big way, coming out on a relatively fine timeline too. And then they have a massive investment in Rivian too. We need to remember that it was a $500 million investment that I think they still participated in the second round too last year. So they have a significant investment in the company, which we are excited, and company we're very excited about. A company that just got multi-billion-dollar contract with Amazon. So you have to consider that too.
Yeah, I mean, just the Rivian stake alone may be worth some of that.
Like even, are we back?
Yep. Regarding Giga Texas, remember how Trump said that Elon was going to create a big factory in the U.S. at Davos? It's a good point. Maybe Trump knew something. It's certainly hard to tell if he knows something or not.
No, I wouldn't like. I'm maybe like 40% think that I still you were just talking, and 60%, but maybe 50-50.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, Giga plants have included massive incentive packages. The closer to metro areas, the harder that is to pull off. I predict the factory will be in West Texas, possibly El Paso region, and design center in Austin. Possible.
That's an interesting theory.
Yeah. Texas is quite big. It could be like
It could be a lot of places.
the size of France. Texas likes pickups. This is a fact. Space rocket testing is just north of Austin. Reno factory cannot expand. I guess it could, but you're running out of people to run the factory in Reno.
Yeah, there's already like 10,000 people working there.
Isaac Luttrell again says, why didn't they just ask, how likely are you to follow through on your order when people place pre-orders? Because they lie.
Yeah, I'm not sure that will have a lot of value. Maybe nowadays, like to Tesla, maybe to all the people that did place their order, maybe it would be more valuable a year later to do a check.
Yeah, and Jonathan Brad also talks about the Reno Sparks housing problems. It's a problem. Like we have a ads guy who's in Reno, and he's talking about how like every week a new subdivision goes up. It's the fastest growing.
What do you mean subdivision?
Like a new housing complex.
Community and something.
Yeah. TI is in Dallas. I knew TI was in Texas. Fred, are you still getting the Rivian, or are you going for the Cybertruck? This is a big question, Fred.
I'm waiting for the official pricing information of the Rivian one, which is supposed to come soon. When we know that, then I'll be able to make an informed decision instead of just going with my gut feeling right now, which is Cybertruck. But if Rivian has a nice deal and they are more competitive than they are right now based on the price that they announced in LA 2 years ago, then they still have a chance.
Yeah, it's and it's the end of this year that they're doing the first deliveries.
Yeah, that's their advantage over the Cybertruck.
Right. So it's happening. Like it's and they're full steam ahead. But it's a totally different looking vehicle.
Yeah.
All right. How many Model 3s are being built this year? I don't know. I'm hearing very low numbers. Okay.
Well, the thing is that what it looks like right now is that Tesla Model Y is going to take some of the production capacity of the Model 3 because it's already taking the demand of it anyway. So Tesla is going to be able to play with that since a lot of the parts are being shared. They are built in the same building and everything. So I think that's something to take into account.
Yeah. Do you have any other updates on Hardware 3 or any other new MCU 1 or 2 news?
Yeah, Hardware 3 is still being part of a retrofit program on a case-by-case basis. People are being upgraded when they get into service, but it's still a very slow ramp-up. Nothing on the MCU 1, unfortunately.
After the most recent update, I no longer have beta autopilot, lane marking, stop signs, etc. on the screen. LRDM3.
I would need to look into that. I will have to know your software version and everything.
Yeah, shoot Fred an email, fred@electrek.co. Yeah. Also, do you think the recently rumored new charge port, I don't remember that, could be something like the European S and X, which accepts CCS adapter? I think a CCS adapter would be kind of nice to have in the US, although it would kind of cement CCS as the de facto standard across the board. For better or worse, I mean, CCS is it's a big chunk. Even I believe Nissan got in trouble for saying that, which uses CCS combo similar size, that women are having problems plugging those things in. I don't know.
Yeah, that wasn't a smart comment to make. Yeah.
Right. What do you guys expect from Battery Day? That should be pretty interesting.
No, I expect Tesla to announce production of their own battery cells have been successful at the pilot level in Fremont, and they are moving to large-scale production with an announcement of a specific factory that's going to produce it.
And these batteries are different because?
Should have longer lasting cycles, probably a marginal improvement in energy density, and the bigger difference is likely going to be cost,
right?
Much lower cost.
I agree. I paid $2 million for the best car you have. That's nice. E-tron is the best car.
You want my signature Model S for $2 million? I'll let it go. Not a penny less now.
e-tron is the best-selling car in Norway in January. I think I saw that somewhere.
Yeah, but like by a few hundred, like
Right.
it
Nobody
was
buys a
still,
car in January in Norway.
yeah, it wasn't high levels or anything like that.
Do you think Tesla will have low production for Q1 due to China shutdown? I don't think it's just due to China shutdown, but that's
Yeah.
certainly not going to help.
Hmm.
I think maybe first quarter earnings might be one of those buy opportunities. Just
Yeah.
saying. Seth, why wait for Model Y and not get a Model X now? Money. I have a Model X. How do you compare them? So I have a Model X. The lease is due in August, I believe, or something around that. And I'm hoping to get a Model Y to replace it by then. We just don't need a Model X. It's a little bit too flashy for us, too big and bulky. It's not fun to drive. Whereas the Model Y, I believe, will be more like the Model 3, which is a lot more fun to drive. Model X has a long wait. I don't think so. I think you just go to the store and get one. When will we start seeing autonomous beta superchargers?
Well, yeah. He's talking.
The snake
Inventory
thing,
were down on the Model X recently.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, those things. I don't know. We've heard a bunch of different concepts have been made, but no deployment schedule just yet.
Okay, listen. If you can buy a Tesla stock now, do it. It will come back and strong. Okay, Virgil Palmer has some good advice for the maybe not. Gook Wapanese says Rivian is too busy marketing and fundraising, no time to make EVs. Actually, Rivian's pretty good at focusing on EVs. They just came out relatively recently with their whole game plan. They've been in stealth mode for so long.
You have to put their marketing on a bigger timeline. The company has been around since 2009. So put all the marketing they've done and put it on a longer timeline. They haven't done anything from 2009 to 2018, basically. So take that into account when you consider the marketing they're doing now.
Hey to King Kong named John. But Model Y is not in production. That's true.
No, it is. It is. They confirm.
I mean, it's not
low volume production
production.
is starting. Yeah.
Yeah, and cars are probably popping out here anytime now. Anybody remember the Tesla semi pickup with the Ford in the back?
Yeah,
LOL.
I think that was an Elon thing where, I mean, when he unveiled that, he was like, "We will make that," but probably from Tesla is like, "What? Are we like that's news?" And then it doesn't happen.
And then the last one is: so do you think workers are still manufacturing 5,000 to 7,000 Model 3s a week? I would say
No.
probably a little bit less.
Yeah, probably because of the Model Y ramp up too. Like, yeah, I think it's gonna affect that a little bit.
All right, we went to an hour and 12 this time.
Yeah.
And we're not
any news on Tesla this week. Kevin Mollison said, "Yeah, there's always Tesla news every day, all day. That's why we work 7 days a week." And speaking of, we're gonna take a break now, and we're gonna see you next week, same time, same place. Thanks a lot for listening on your podcast app. You can give us a thumbs up or review. That always help. On YouTube, make sure to subscribe. We have some great contents coming up all the time, and that's pretty much it for us. Ciao.